King of Love, we moving on up. I have a message from the King of Love, lessons, degrees, melodies sent from above. The King of Love is sent to teach. Words of wisdom are within your reach. Knowledge is a deep understanding of the wisdom of self without being demanding. The words he speaks, the melody he sings, let you know in the door he is truly a king. Disregard the appearance, seek to reach within, and embrace the King of Love without fear of sin. His life is dramatic, his path full of gold. The King of Love will never grow old. The words make you smile, the touch makes you blush. The seriousness of it all sends your mind in a rush. Sisters, brothers, all families, you don't hear him calling? You must be deaf, because we seem to be falling from the highest heights where we were meant to be. His music soothes and his words relieves. Listen close, pay attention. Let him take you to another dimension. When you feel the touch, please don't rush. Relax, open your mind and learn to trust. Look within to see who you truly are, and let the King of Love be your guiding star. Welcome to another episode of JAS Presents From the Projects to the Penthouse. Welcome. Hey, y'all. Dr. Velvetta Young is here today with us, and we're going to be discussing how violence in the street and grief. So I wanted to welcome you to JAS, Dr. Velvetta Young, to our podcast. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a little slow today. To this podcast, thank you so very much for sharing what you've been through. And so that's a bit of why this podcast was created. I wanted to create the podcast so that we can discuss so many different subjects as it relates to living and life and how to live our lives more abundantly and some of the things that we're going through. So I wanted to introduce to you guys, first and foremost, Dr. Velvetta Young. She's the author of Pushing Past Fear to Find the Best You. This book was birthed out of loss and grief, and it was birthed out of a time in her life and different times in her life that caused her pain. And the purpose that she decided to come on to this podcast, to do this podcast with me, is so that she can help others who may have experienced some of the same things that she has experienced with the loss of her son. Her son, Darren, was gunned down in the streets of Chicago on August of 2020. He was only 32 years of age. So I invited Dr. Young to get on here to help us push past, like your book that you came in and you wrote for us, push past the fear, push past the pain to become the best you, even after loss. So it's a thing that's possible. So this podcast is dedicated to those who have lost their lives in gun violence, even just death itself, grief. We want to discuss that. So welcome, Dr. Young, to the stage. It's all on you. I would like for you, before we get started, to give everybody a brief understanding of who you are and where you come from and what some of the things, your background. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here on this podcast. I do not take it lightly. And so I'm Velvetta. What does that mean? Well, my name reminds you of cheese, but I assure you that there is nothing cheesy about me. I have always been an advocate for what's going on in our community. Excuse me. Back in the day, when I first moved to Dalton, I was approached because at that time, the liquor stores were opening at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the children, grammar school age, were going to the liquor stores before school, buying alcohol, and then becoming drunk at 10 o'clock. And I was part of the coalition that shut that down. You cannot find a liquor store in Dalton that opens before 10 o'clock to allow our babies to get to school.
Wow.
And then I became a project manager for the ministers conference because I saw, even before COVID, that our ministers were misguided. They weren't in tune. They didn't know technology. And if technology is the way of the world, how can someone that leads others not be concerned about it? So I became the project manager, and I would go out and I would find representatives to come in and talk to the pastors about different things, giving them different ways to look at things, not only for the church, but for their parishioners as well. And so, like she mentioned, in August 2020, again, was helping a friend, my girlfriend of 45 years. Her aunt had passed in Tennessee, and she had just put her husband in a nursing home because he had had 2 severe strokes. And she was concerned about getting on the road by herself. And I said, girl, don't worry about it. I'll get in the car with you. And we drove down to Brownstown, Tennessee. We got there about 11 o'clock. 7 o'clock the next morning, my phone is ringing off the hook. I answer it, and that's when I'm told that my son is laying in the alley and will never get up again. And so that started the process, because we all know someone that has passed or been killed in our family. And the thing about it is, we never talk about it. We never talk about it before it happens. We don't talk about it when it happens. We don't talk about it after it happens. And everybody is left alone to deal with that hurt, that pain, that depression. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can have a conversation about what and how you felt during that time and after.
Wow. That's amazing, Doc. And you articulated so well as to the steps that happen to the final summation of your son's life. That's honorable and intentional. And it's intentional because God has placed you in a position so that you can help others who have experienced grief and violence, in their families. And like you said, 1 out of every family, out of probably every 2 families, have had someone who has been murdered or died because of the carelessness of somebody else. So that's so important. And thank you so much for being an advocate for our children. I see the picture behind you of children. So I know that there has to be a love for you. And we have to, like the scriptures say, we got to train up our children so they know which way to go. They're not lost in this world, because what we're living in today, that's what's happening. It's like we was talking before the show started. Like, it's almost like a pandemic in and of itself. It's like our children are at risk of all types of things that can occur. You can't, I don't let my daughter get off the bus by herself. I'm afraid to let her walk from the bus to the school because they're snatching kids and they're doing all manner of evil against our children. And your son was 32 years old when they took his life. So not to rehash any kind of emotional things that go along with death, because I too, like you said, all families experience death. I had a cousin who was murdered like that, and I look on Facebook and I see my family, they always remember his birthday, and see, so every year of things that were significant to them concerning that around my cousin Solomon. It's like it rehashes that negative emotion. And so what do you say about that? When there's no closure was there any closure with your son's death? Did they ever find out,
Well, the streets know.
The streets always know.
But the detective told me the only way that these 2 guys will be caught is if they beat up a girlfriend and she get mad and turn them in. And I thought, how sad.
Are you serious?
How sad that it has to be. So violence begets more violence. So
they knew who. So let's discuss that. So they knew who did it. You had information that was relative to who murdered your son. You give that information to the powers that be, which is the police, and their response to you was, there's no evidence. What do you say about that?
I mean, what can I say? So at the time of his death, there was a young lady in the alley also who disappeared. She left 3 kids here. And because to date, we have not heard from her, I can only assume that she's been killed also. Um, as I tell any parent, anybody that has lost somebody, think about the fact that they were a part of your life. We like to think about and talk about the fact that they're gone, how they left here, why they left here. Give thanks for their life. They did not have to be in your life.
That's right.
And we are living in such a time. So I don't blame the children. I don't blame the politicians. I don't blame the teachers. I blame us as adults in the 21st century. We have got to get back to Big Mamas, Uncle Charlie's, Auntie Helen's. It's no longer okay for you to say, I don't like my sister Judith, so I don't want to be bothered with her or her kids. You have an obligation, if you are born in that family, to step up and say something.
That's it.
We know 60% of households are ran by single women. Single women cannot do it all.
That's it.
And so when they can't do it all, now you got to reach out to the father. It's the father's responsibility, and he is attached to a family. So his mother can't get off saying, well, he got so many kids. No, sweetie, if that's one of yours, you need to claim it.
That's right.
You need to put whatever wisdom and experience that you have into that child. And I'll tell you why that's so important, Judith. My oldest grandson, Darren's oldest son, is 17 and graduates from high school next year. So the other weekend he was here and he said, Grandma, I have no idea what I want to be. I said, really? I said, why don't you get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of it, and write down every occupation in my family and in your mom's family. And that will give you some ideas of what you want to do. At least you have a starting point. These are the kind of questions that our teenagers are having before they get grown and go off into the world. And if they can't come talk to the family, who they gonna talk to? The street? The street gonna tell them, oh, be a police officer, be a fireman, work with the ambulance, learn how to work. The street is not gonna tell them that. They're gonna tell them we got some drugs and a gun and you can do what you need to do.
That's it.
And so we need to start back having those conversations. We need to get back to, it's okay if your neighbor calls your parent on your child, instead of saying, well, if you say something to me about my child, now I'm ready to fight. You know, little baby bad. He was bad when you brought him home from the hospital.
Now. That's why they called him baby.
Exactly.
And you're right. We have to hold ourselves accountable as parents to lead our children so that they won't fall into the auspices of the streets. I remember coming up, I had both mother and father in the house. So we had a 2-parent household. It was 7. I had 7 siblings. There's 7 of us, plus my mother and my father, growing up in the projects. But I do also remember that my mother was so strict. You know what I'm saying? Anything that I did to get my way in the streets, I had to defiantly do it against her. And then my mother and father was strong. Not my father, I was daddy's girl, so he was lenient. But my mother was so adamant about structure that if you doing something wrong in the street, you ain't staying in her house. So it really taught me that, it was a survival of the fittest for me. So when I didn't want to do what she said, I went on my own and had to learn life the hard way, which I should have stayed at home and I wouldn't be having no bills now. I could still be, you know what I mean? You would still be, with your parents, but the strictness and the 2-parent household did provide me the structure to make me the woman that I am today, versus me just going straight in the street. Because me personally, Doc, I ain't never been no follower. I always beat to my mind just went to I beat to a different drum. So if I'm out in the street hustling or something like that, it was because I conjured it up. Not nobody influenced me to do so. So you're right. We need that parents, the fathers and the mothers. And one other thing, I'm a girl. I was a young girl. Those young men. The women, we can't raise no. I can't. I'm having trouble with my daughter. I definitely can't tell no young man how to be no man. So we need that structure. We need men to be able to bring that headship in the household to get our young men from going to the street trying to find that community that they seek, because that's what it is. You know, I long time ago, being in gangs and stuff like that, I remember speaking to somebody, I don't know who I was speaking to, but he was telling me that gangs are like in Africa, groups and tribes, and the nature of people of color is to gather. And so that's how we get that censorship and that community kind of mindset that, hey, if my family ain't gonna do it here, I'm gonna get brother in the street, he gonna be my fam, and we gonna do this together, and we gonna build this together. So we messed up with that, and we need that mother, that father, that what do you call it, the Medias, and the neighbors that's nosy, that's gonna tell it. You see somebody put a bullet in somebody here, you need somebody to tell it, because look, you knew who it was that took your son's life. So you didn't have any kind of advocacy within the judicial system. So at least if you would have had that kind of advocacy between community, a lot of times community handles stuff. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? From the street level, the community will handle those type of things. But we're living in a society, like you said, that we don't have that. And that's unfortunate. And that's a real pointed thing we need.
I think one of the things that we don't have anymore, or that's not taught, is love. I can't help you if I don't love myself.
That's right.
And, you know, the big phrase this year was self-love. Are you taking care of you? A lot of people don't know how to take care of themselves. You know, once I put on the eyelashes and the hair and the cheeks and the butt and the breasts, I don't even recognize myself.
Yeah, I'm somebody else.
To help you when I can't recognize myself. And it's so important that we all take time to look at the man in the mirror. If you don't like what you see, change it. Because you have a right. God gave us all a choice. So if you don't like what's going on in your family, in your household, at your job, look in the mirror and change it.
That's
because
right.
If you don't change it, you're part of the problem.
That's true. That's true. So what were some of the things that helped you? I know grief is so real. I mean, the grief of losing, and especially when you lose someone you love tragically like that, it's almost like a knife just come and cut your little heart out. And you can't breathe, you can't eat, you don't know which way to go. You have a faith in the Most High, but it's something that just blow the wind out of you. Yeah. So what were some of the things that helped you along to get over, especially your child?
I'm still not over it, Judith. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you today. Sunday, I was full of tears. He had been given an award by his former Masonic Lodge, and he joined the lodge because he realized that he needed structure and he needed discipline. And it was something that I couldn't do. He couldn't learn it from me, and he couldn't learn it from his dad. He couldn't learn it from my uncles. So he went and found a Masonic lodge that he felt he could learn structure and discipline. And he gave them a run for their money. I mean, they talk about him and the things that he used to do, but at the end of the day, he saw that he had a need and nobody that he knew could fill it. So he went and found it.
He found a community. Exactly. The lodge was their community, and that's what they do.
Exactly. And so a lot of times I just tell people, you definitely have to look at the man in the mirror. And I believe that I got what I give out, because this was August 2020. We were in the height of COVID.
Yeah.
At that time, I had lost 25 friends personally
Ooh, Jesus.
to COVID. So I was already feeling a certain kind of way. I couldn't get to my girlfriends. I couldn't get to my other friends. I couldn't get to
No
church.
comfort.
It's nowhere to go. It's nobody to talk to. And so we set up the services. And what happened was my youngest son wanted to do a memorial for him in the city at one of our cousins' house in Inglewood. And I got to think, you sit down and be still for a minute. And the Holy Spirit said, that might not go off so well. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, shootings come from them seeing new people in the neighborhood not knowing what they're doing. So even though they're coming to grieve your son, to the neighborhood, it looks like a takeover and there could be a shooting. So I went back to my son and said, hey, if you ask them to not to come to the memorial, I will have the services in the neighborhood where they could come. And so that's what we did. He put it on the street. We had the memorial with my family in Inglewood. And then the day of his funeral, we came here. Judith, to my surprise, there was 300 people outside the funeral home, and there were 300 people inside the funeral home. All young people saying, I could
During the
not,
height of COVID.
during COVID, saying, I could not believe he's gone. And let me just give you a little background on Darren. Darren was my bad child. That's the only way to say that. We have good kids and we have bad kids.
Okay. Keep it 100.
He always pushed the envelope. If I said no, he said yes. If I went out the front door, he went out the back door. And that happened all the way until 2000, when my husband died unexpectedly at home. He was here and my 8-year-old son was here. And when I finally made it back home, he vowed to me, I'm going to be the man of the house. I'm going to help do whatever needs to be done. So he started to change his life around. He started, he went and got a job at a car wash, and this particular car wash used some kind of insecticide that gives people cancer. So about a year later, Darren was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my God.
We didn't know it was cancer. I just noticed that it was a month time where he just seemed to be declining, and his skin was ashy and he was just discolored. So I had my friend take him to the doctor. The doctor said, oh, well, he has a swollen shoulder blade, gave him painkillers for that, but he still didn't look right. So he took him back, did some more tests, took him back, did some more tests. And finally, the Holy Spirit said, tell them to do an x-ray of his chest. And when they did the x-ray of the chest, the doctor called me at work and said, Miss Young, we are admitting him to the hospital because he has pneumonia. I said, okay, fine. Pneumonia I could deal with, give him some antibiotics. He'd be running around.
Right.
The very next morning, the phone rang at 8:00 in the morning, and it was the doctor. And he was saying, Miss Young, I am so sorry. We misdiagnosed Darren. He does not have pneumonia. He has cancer, and we are not a children's hospital, so we don't have any doctors to work on him. You have to come get him because we are dismissing him from the hospital. All I know is you're a hospital. Where is he supposed to go? What's on first? Who's on second? And before I hang the phone up, God said in my ear, just as loud as I'm talking to you, I got this. And that was one of the times in my life that I let him, you got it, God, because I don't know nothing about cancer. I don't know what hospital we're supposed to go to. I don't know nothing about the doctors, the medicine, whatever. And he led me to Christ Hospital, which does have a children's hospital. And those doctors admitted him. They worked on Darren for the next 5 years, even to the point when he told them at 18 that his girlfriend was pregnant. They didn't believe him because of all the invasive stuff they had did to him. They said, there's no way she could be pregnant by you. So they did the maternity test. They paid for all the maternity leave. They paid for the hospital stay because it was his child. And to this day, they don't know how he was able to give birth to a child, not one, but two.
Wow. With cancer.
And so with cancer. And so that's why the funeral was so full, because People just could not believe this boy beat cancer
He
twice.
overcame.
And now for him to go out like this, that's just unbelievable.
Mm, that's amazing, amazing. But God does all things well.
Yes.
Although we don't understand grief, we don't understand death, we don't understand those things, but we understand the Father. And we
Yes.
know that He does all things well. And we can rest in that when we lose loved ones. And, violence in our streets is at an all-time high, and it's not just in Chicago. So with that knowledge, that violence being in the street like that, what is it that we as individuals or families or community, what is it that you think? Well, let me rephrase the question. What prompted you to write your book, that's the pushing past fear to find the best you? What from, because you wrote that book after your son's death, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So what was in you that pushed you to write that book to help others?
So, as a young teen mom, I had my first son when I was 18. I've all I would have to say my mom, because I was a student at Chicago Vocational High School,
Mm,
top 300 out of 1,500, well on my way to where I want to be, what I want to do, and
mm,
found out that I was pregnant. And I said, okay, we got two months of school left. I'm done. My life is over. And my mom went and found a pregnancy school in the city of Chicago, right across the street from Jackson Park Hospital, and brought the car fare to me and said, you need to show up there. Not only are you going to get your education, they're going to
mm,
teach you on what to do with your baby. And I
mm.
was like, well, that's a win-win. I don't have nothing else to do. And I went there, and then going through that process, I realized that everyone wasn't as lucky as me. Everyone didn't have a mother that cared about them and wanted them to graduate. Everybody didn't have a mother that wanted them to know how to take care of these babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a desire, even from then, that I would go back and build a school, even bigger pregnancy school, and have kids not only educate, but teach them how to raise their children. And then when I finally left the post office after 20 years as a supervisor, I opened a consignment shop for women and children.
Mm.
And that's gently used items that could be rebought. And my idea was, knowing what it was like to be a single mom, I don't think that single women should have to deal with being ostracized at their job because they can't keep up with the latest fashions.
Oh, wow.
Being able to offer these fashions, leathers, fur coats, all kind of stuff that we as women want,
Right.
but
Yeah.
as a single mom, we may not be able to, if it
Right.
comes to me getting a fur coat or my children having a decent Christmas, my kids gonna have a decent Christmas.
That's right.
But the feeling or the want of me having a fur coat hasn't went away. And
Right.
so being able to supply different clothing items, shoes, coats. We even had a children's department. And if the clothes didn't sell after 90 days, I gave them to homeless shelters, which is where I met a lot of young teen moms who would bring, because I would tell them, bring the kids into the shop. Don't just come pick up the stuff. Let me see the kids. And so if they came in the wintertime, they would come and they might have a baby in an outfit, but there's no t-shirt. So now I'm able to tell you, sweetie, you need a t-shirt on that baby's skin in the wintertime.
Mhm.
They need a hat on their head. They
Mhm.
on their feet. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that they can do it.
Mhm.
So beginning to be able to share with young moms what it was that I had learned that helped me. I'm gonna knock on wood, until Darren got sick with cancer, none of my kids were ever sick. We weren't in the hospital, no asthma, no bronchitis, none of that. Whatever you got, olive oil is gonna take care of it.
Yeah, that's what my mama used to give her. I hated it. Woo. Woo. I'd be giving it to Shavine.
And so being able to pass that on, but the book had always been in my mind. And when Darren passed away, I said, you know what? I am not going to let this year go past without putting these things in on paper. The book talks about domestic violence, of which I was a victim with my first husband. It talks
Wow.
it talks about losing your parents, because we lose people all of our lives.
Yes.
So you only get one mom and one dad.
Right.
I have plenty brothers and sisters, cousins, aunties, uncles, one mom and one dad.
Yeah.
When they're gone, you learn that they are your biggest. They're your biggest supporters. They want what's best for you. They want you to supersede what they
Nobody
did.
else gonna tell you the truth.
Yes, they're the only one that's going to do that. And when that's gone, you've lost something. And so being able to share with people, because like my mom passed away, and I was really wallowing in the grief. And it had been about 4 years, and I can remember laying in the bed one night saying, "Oh, if you just give me my mother back, life will be so perfect." And God showed me a picture of a skeleton laying in a casket, and He said, "Do you really want to see it?" "Oh no, that's okay. I have not acted her back. She needs to stay where she at." But we have to remember the things that they taught us, the things that they shared with us, the things that they brought us, how they made us into the people that we are today. And again, when you look in the mirror, if you don't like what you see and you're an adult, you have a choice to make better choices. And then I'm gonna tell you this, Dr. Judah, if you are the smartest person in the group, if you are the richest person in the group, you need a new group.
Right.
Because now you're just the head man at the top, but you need always know that there's someone bigger than you, someone better than you, someone better
look at that.
more money, a better car, a better house. It's always somebody that has more.
Yeah.
So if we're not reaching for more, you definitely can't tell me Velvetta to come along, because you ain't reaching for nothing.
That's it. You got to have a vision, and vision always moves higher.
Yes.
And it's looking forward and stuff like that. So that's awesome how you decided to write the book. It's pretty much my story. God had placed the book in my heart in probably early 2000s. And people would come to me, "Judy, why you don't write no book? Judy, why?" I'm like, "Would y'all please mind y'all business?" And so my book also came from grief, because my father was was transitioning. And I had petitioned the Father to not take him. Please give me some more time, because I can remember early on in my life, my father had a massive heart attack. And I can remember as a little girl praying and not even knowing or having a true knowledge of having a relationship with the Father. But I can remember asking him, "Please don't take him. Let him stay with me until I'm grown." And so in 2009, my dad got sick. And I was like, "Wait a minute. I'm grown, but this too soon." He was only 73 years old. And he had been diagnosed with cancer. And so I was like so challenged at that point in my life, because I was conflicted. Why are you taking him now? And I was saying, "Lord, I've been doing everything, I let you change my whole life around and been trying to be obedient to you." And I'm talking to God like I'm making, a deal. Let's make a deal, Daddy, because, you can't take him. This is the love of my life. Me and my daddy was cool like water and ice, and so when he had got sick, it just tore something from me. And so I can remember so clearly, I was in my car, I was about to turn the corner, and the Lord had told me two things. He said, "You have done everything that I told you, but these two things." And one of the things was, he had told me I needed to have some forgiveness for someone, which was my ex-husband. And then the other one was, he told me I needed to write that book. And so once my father transitioned, it was kind of angry. That grief deals with you. It's hard to explain, but grief takes everybody differently. And for me, I became more withdrawn. I was just more into just not wanting to engage, so to speak. Grief took me in that respect, in that direction. And I can remember, when God was bringing me out of it, he told me, I told you to write the book. And then he gave me step by step how to write it, how to produce it. And I said, okay, that's done. Can we move on with my life now? So it's interesting that you said that your book was birthed through grief. And sometimes we have to go through those things in order to do what God has told us to do. And pretty much this podcast was birthed through grief. I buried my sister and my youngest brother within 7 months. And I just almost like fell apart for a minute. Everybody think Judy's so strong. Judy don't go through nothing. But, I don't say nothing just because you don't see a person saying something don't mean they ain't going through nothing. But I was trying to deal with it on my own. And in dealing with that grief, it caused me to introspect it, to do some introspection. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, I began to remember what God had been told me to do. He said, I want you to do that podcast. So I got it right away. I called, Dr. Barnes, and I was like, because I can remember it clearly. My brother told me the last time I saw him, dude, you need to do a podcast. And I just pray that my doing it, I don't care about nothing other than that God gets the messages out. Because when my sister was sick, but my brother wasn't, and he died abruptly. So the death to me, and I found him in my home. So the death to me, I didn't really know how to deal with it. I was angry. I was angry, not at God, but I was angry actually at him. Mm-hmm. Because he was young, and we had so many things that we wanted to do, and it took so much. And I remember, my locks, I had 23 years that I had grown my locks. And all of a sudden, after my brother died and everybody went away, and I was by myself, I said, I have to do something. And I just cut my hair off. Wow. Yep, I cut my hair off. And so that journey for me, kind of like that grief was more released from that. And that's what birthed the podcast. And so grief is something, and especially when it's traumatic. And it's traumatic when you lose a loved one by violence. Just by violence. That's just, it hurts all the more. You can understand when God just takes somebody and they go and they sleep, or they go through health conditions or something like that. But through violence, and we have to do that as a body of believers. I truly believe that it's our responsibility, like you said, the mom or pops, the Medeas, it's our responsibility to take these streets back. What do we do to take the streets back? Everybody ain't going to read no book, but we have to each one teach one. So we got to get in places and help each other over this grief, because grief is just damaging. Mm-hmm. It's damaging not just to the individual, but it damages everything around it. Their family, you go through all types of different emotional things that you go through, and spiritually you go through things. So what do you think that we can do as a community, especially with this violence? Because you see the Father Flaggers, they're marching in the streets and they're burying. Here's another thing. We're not prepared for these traumatic deaths. I want to touch on that right there. Okay. Death is hard enough to go through, but not being prepared is worse. And that's why I wanted to also point out with you, because you have that aspect with insurance. A lot of times these kids and these young adults and these adults are dying, and nobody's financially ready to take care of it. And so then you're bringing shame on the family. You showboating, you got all this stuff together, but then when some member of the family dies, you pull up what you call those, a GoFundMe account. You don't have nothing that you can turn in and turn into some cash so that you can bury your loved one. So that's another thing. Our community don't properly prepare. We desire to look good, but we ain't got no money. We desire to feel good, but we ain't got no happiness. So I believe that there's something that we have to be able to connect the dots. And what do you think that is?
So that would be the financial part, and part of financial stability is making sure that you have life insurance. It was such a relief that upon his passing, as hard as it was for me, I had life insurance. I didn't have to GoFundMe. I didn't have to ask nobody. I didn't have to sell nothing. I didn't have to buy nothing. The life insurance covered what we need.
Mm-hmm.
It covered the repast. It covered the food. It even covered, because there was 2 friends from church and 2 of Mike's sisters that actually worked the repast for me. I had enough money to send them on $120 spa dates just for helping me out on that day.
That's right. That's right.
We tend to think that nobody owes you anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a parent of children that are unmarried, it is your responsibility to have life insurance on them. Period. It could be $5,000, $10,000. Period.
But look, $5,000 ain't gonna get it.
No, it's not.
Funerals back in the day, you can bury somebody for $5,000. Funerals are $15,000 and up. The burial spot is over $5,000. So to try to have that, money, I mean, what are we doing?
You have to get, so in 2005, I was working with Sheriff Dart. And if you recall, that was when the Sun-Times did an expose on the Cook County morgue. And they were upset because the morgue had so many bodies. And this was from the mass shootings that we had, plus the fact that families weren't coming to pick up their loved ones. The morgue can only hold a body for 30 days. And then it goes into an unmarked grave. So if your loved one gets killed and you love them, why don't you have the money to bury them? Why don't you have the money to go to the morgue and identify the body and have a funeral home pick them up? That says something about you'd rather look good than when the family member dies. Now you got to go fund me. That's begging. And if you so good, why are you begging? Get your house in order. You cannot help me if you're not helping yourself.
Come home.
Life insurance for yourself, life insurance for your children that are unmarried, life insurance for your grandchildren. That's your obligation as the head of that family. It's not if I feel like, it's not that. And if you are in a family where you don't see eye to eye with your grown children, you don't see eye to eye with your grandchildren, you need to fix that. Because at the end of the day, in 30 years, you're going to need them. And if you can't stand them now, what you think going to happen in 30 years when you need them to change you, when you need them to go to the grocery store for you, when you need them to take you around to the DMV? What do you think is, you have the right to change. You have the ability to change it.
And if nothing else, self-preservation is the first law of nature. If you can't depend on anybody in your last days, then you need something like a trust. You need a living trust, so that whatever assets that you have, even if you don't, a lot of people don't do insurance, but at least have an account set aside so that in the event something happens to you, you're not bringing shame on your family. you're not causing your family harm. Not only are they grieving, but now they're trying to figure out, you do this, we piecing this together. That's unfortunate. You shouldn't have to do that. And I think that our families are the ones that really suffer from that. We are the ones, we get the Rolexes. You can't take no real Rolex and grab no. I know I got one that was 18 stacks. And I know if I tried to sell it today, I ain't getting nothing but about 10, but at least I can get 10 from it. But I learned even from that, I will never, ever give any consumer, company, as a consumer, that kind of money. I'm going to go let the Chinese copy it and I'm going to buy it. And I still look good.
Here's the thing, Judith. If you're going to get a trust, if you're going to put money in the bank, my aunt, God bless her soul, 86-year-old, just made her transition last Sunday. Had let her insurance lapse, her life insurance lapse. However, she had enough. She has money in the bank.
There's somebody to go to.
She has a beneficiary already attached
on the bank account. That's another thing.
Yes, because I had a friend, her mom died, and she didn't believe in life insurance, but she had the money in the bank. What she didn't have was a beneficiary that she had selected on that account, so they could get the money.
That's another thing. That's a good point. Always, when you open up any kind of bank accounts, add a beneficiary. All you got to do is have a social security number and their date of birth. And that way, if anything happened to you, they're trustees over your account. There ain't going to be no problems. But if you don't, then now you got to go into what they call probate. I'm a paralegal by trade. So once you don't have your stuff together, properties or whatever it is that you own, now you got to go before the court and let the court sort it out, because Joe Blow gonna say he's entitled to it, John Doe gonna say they entitled to it. Now you got to fight, and the court's they got fees for that probate thing. So I admonish people to, get a living trust at least. Put your properties in trust. So that way you designate where things go in the event something happens. A will is even not really good enough these days, because a will can be revoked if you don't have the right type of will. There are irrevocable wills and there's revocable wills. So financially, in death, you still have to be prepared. And thank God, when that happened with your son, that the shock of that happening, you didn't have that additional worry of how am I going to bury him, because even if he didn't have it on himself, you had enough sense to have it. So can you imagine one person carrying the weight of everybody when it comes to their finances? And so you trying to make sure that your entire family, no, y'all grown. Get responsible. If you ain't responsible enough to have your stuff together, then you going in the unmarked.
And I hear so many people say, because with Legal Shield, part of the service is a will. And they say, well, it doesn't matter. If I'm not here, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
Yes, it does.
It matters. It matters to
you. To me too.
It matters to your children, your grandchildren.
Yeah, what are you doing?
After you are an example for that family.
Right, you're supposed to leave a legacy, not a bill.
Exactly.
And that's part of, pushing past the fear. All these different fears that we have, you know what I'm saying? When we lose loved ones, the first thing, everybody looking at one person, because they figure that one person got it all together, but that one person worked to get theirs together. Right. And you ain't entitled. So you going in the unmarked. If you prepare yourself for something like that, you going in the unmarked. Because I'm not finna put my hard-earned money. I got legacy to live. I have to leave. I got a child. I got a husband. I can't compromise what I have, because I can go tomorrow.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And you sit up there and willy-nilly all your money all your life and drank, smoke, and ate and all this other stuff. Where I took and ate oodles of noodles to try to keep mine in the bank. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's important. That helps a lot. Thank you for bringing that out, that financial piece. And
Mhm.
so, Dr. Young, also you're a director for Legal Shield. So she can be reached at Legal Shield at her email at what is it? What's your email?
Y7
Y
VEL at AOL.com.
So it's at the bottom of the screen how you can reach her if you guys are interested in getting any type of insurance for your loved ones or for yourself. Reach her send an email to her at y7vel at aol.com. Also, she has the book. She's an author of Pushing Past the Fear to Find the Best You, so that you can know and understand how to deal with the grief and the traumas that's associated with the long lasting effects. Pushing Past the Fear to Find the Best You. You can get that off of Amazon.com. So I thank you, Doc. You know, you can go on and, share whatever you feel that you want to share in addition to what we discussed. But y'all, we got to find a way together to circumvent these deaths in the street. And every time it's a death in the street, you told me that. What's the numbers on that in Chicago alone?
So to date, there's been 971 shootings. There are 34 children under the age of 15 that have been killed. These numbers are just outside of the box. And yes, you mentioned Father Flager. I love him for the prayer vigils and the walks, but guess what? That ain't getting it
I'm
done.
not getting it done.
I love Black Lives Matter, but that ain't getting it done. Every holiday, it seems like there's an influx of shootings every day. It's like we done came immune to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the year after Darren's death, I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read the newspaper. As a matter of fact, my uncle was here visiting from New Orleans. We were in the car. We was driving down 75th Street going west. We got stopped at the light, and all you saw was a guy get out the passenger side and go around to the driver's side. So I ain't gonna lie, I'm nosy. I inch up a little bit, and this guy is physically beating who's ever in the driver's seat, and tears are coming down my face. The light has turned green, and my uncle is like, "What's the matter?" And I'm like, "It has got to stop. The killing, the violence, it has to stop." And if you're the one that's perpetrating, you need your butt whooped.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mm-hmm.
the one that's staying, you need your butt whooped, because no matter what it looked like, greater is on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
You may think he's God's gift to this earth, but if you're not happy, if you're going to bed scared, if you're going to bed scared for your children,
Yeah.
leave. When I made the decision to leave my first husband, I left with a shopping bag. My oldest son was 7. My baby was 6 months old. In the shopping bag was baby clothes and infant meal. I didn't care about me because I felt like if God brought me this far, he'll bring me the rest of the way.
That's it. That's it. So, ladies, listen up.
Don't be
And
scared.
men too, because some men are in domestic violence situations as well.
That's
So
true.
listen up. If you're in a situation and there's violence and you're scared or you're mentally being abused, get out. If there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. So there's no reason for you to have to put yourself through that kind of stuff. God has help for you, but you have to realize that you need help. And he will send you the help that you need, and get over it. Get over the traumas. Get over it and move forward and help somebody with your life, with what you like. Dr. Young, she's been through it. So allow your life to be a reflection in the image of the Most High, so that you can help some. Each one teach one. Help somebody else with this stuff. We gotta stop it. Instead of recording it. I see this so much on social media. Everybody record. How you recording something that somebody's getting hurt? I don't get that part. I remember one time, and I was I think I was rehabbing a house on 78th and Sealy, and this young girl and this young guy. I kept hearing, you know how the house is hollow. When you're rehabbing it. And I kept hearing this screaming. So I go out the house and the contractors and stuff was there. I go out the house and this dude like dog walking her.
Oh, wow.
This young girl, she couldn't have been no more than probably about 19, 20 years old. And this man was like dog walking her. I never forget it. And I walked up to him. I said, if you touch her again, and I upped it. I said, if you touch her again, and he ran like a sissy. And that girl, he had her face all just, and I asked her, let me, get you some help. Let me call the police. Who is he? She didn't want to do it. So sometimes our minds are so messed up. You know what I'm saying? That when somebody's giving you help, you don't even want to receive the help because you traumatized. She probably was scared if she did turn them in, but I told them, nigga, you come back over here. Oops. I forgot we on live. Father, forgive me. Y'all, that's BC. That's Judy BC, before Christ. But yeah, I'm still the same in certain areas because I can't sit around and videotape nobody getting hurt.
Yeah, beat down, right.
If my mama is out there, I hope nobody would sit up and videotape my mother.
Right.
So I'm not going to videotape nobody. So this violence and this stuff that's going on in the world it's got to stop. And I think prayer, supplication. So he said some things only come by fasting and prayer. Yeah, I'm going back to the word because that's what I'm built on. But sometimes you have to also act. You have to act, and that's what the father flaggers and people are trying to do. They're trying to act in a non-violent way. Right. But Satan ain't coming out like that.
Oh, no. He's swinging.
Exactly. So my suggestion is, I don't know. You wrote the book. You tell us.
It's going to take love. And love for a child doesn't start when they're 16. You have to tell that child no. You have to set boundaries. I can remember when my neighbor was raising her kids. It'd be like 2:00 in the morning. Her daughter is just bouncing. I'm like, why do you have her bouncing around the wall? She don't want to. It ain't what she wants.
Right.
You're the parent.
Right.
You paying the bills. You going to work. You paying for the car note. What I say, in my mother's house, I had no say. I did what I was told until I could get out.
Yeah.
So it's not somewhere that's supposed to be comfortable and you're sheltered and you get your way. No, they prepare you for when you go to school.
Right.
Just get in your face, or when the police get in your face. If you don't already been taught that you have to respect your elders or you have to respect authority, then you're not gonna jump up in their face and they ain't gonna snatch you by the neck, and now you ain't gonna have a situation. It's reasons that we were taught that stuff as kids that help us get to the age that we are now. But if you don't care what happens to the kids, you want to be your kid's friend. You want to tell them yes to everything, even if it's not good for them. Then we'll see you at the funeral, because that's what happened. Because if I can't tell you what to do at 2, I sure can't tell you what to do at 16. And now you taller than me, bigger than me. I can't tell you. I can't do nothing with you. So it starts from birth on. I
still got fear. I still have a reverence for my mother. With my father and my father, I don't call my mother by her first name. It's still, yeah, mama. Yeah, even sometimes when she get on your nerve, yes, mother. You know what I'm saying? But today, these kids don't have no kind of respect. It's respect. We don't respect each other, and we don't love each other because we don't love ourselves.
Exactly.
And that's it. That you summed it up right there. What the world needs is love. Yeah. And so we can circumvent is what my takeaway from what you discussed with us today is in order to get over the violence and the grief and all the different things that we are going through in this world is through love. And that's scripture too, because the Bible says that, love covers a multitude of sins. Mm-hmm. And if we just love on each other, y'all, we got to just love on each other. Love on each other. Be happy. My next guest next week is going to be a couple, and I just love them. They are comedians, and they just. I sometimes I'll be busy during my day, and I'll just go on their page to listen to something and laugh. You know what I'm saying? Because the Bible says laughter does the heart good like a medicine. We talked about grief this week, but next week we're going to talk about laughter and the importance of having laughter and love and relationship with the Most High. So, Dr. Young, you've been such a blessing to come on and share your personal story with us. I pray that the Father continues to heal you and that you continue to be able to sow the love that God has given you, even in the loss of your son, to others. Are you part of any kind of groups or anything that, women who have lost their children?
So I do talk to a psychiatrist, and I am part of a women's group that's associated with, of course, it just left me. It's a hospital on the west side. Mm-hmm. And you cannot be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, that's true.
Help me. You cannot be afraid to say, I'm hurting, because it's okay.
Right.
You have to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Don't keep saying, I'm all right. I'm all right. No, stop lying.
Yeah, that's
true. To yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what happened was, like I said, we had just started COVID. I had lost all these friends. Then I lost Darren. The last Friday in August of 2020, mm-hmm. I started a 1-hour Zoom called Black Women Speak, where I invited women from all over to just jump on, and we'll say what the topic was and we'll talk about it. We had women that jumped on from the United Kingdom, from Canada, and they told us, this is so good because there's no one else to talk to. We talk about intimacy, we talk about men, we talk about same sex, we talk about raising girls, raising boys. We just have a conversation, because so many people do not have honest people that we could be in the house with and talk to and have a conversation, and they won't tell you the truth. I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Me too.
It might be ugly, but you need to know that you need to hear the truth in order to get better.
That's right. And that's it. That's a part of love.
Yes. Judith, thank you so much for having me on. It was an absolute pleasure to be here with you. I hope you have me back, because
I most certainly will.
God has dropped the second book in my lap, and that should be out in June of 2023.
What's the name of it?
Raise America, Raise Your Children.
Whoa. Oh my God. I don't even need to you don't need to tell me what that one's about, because you're going to have some nuggets up in that piece that every parent need to have.
Yes.
Because when you're raising your children, it's a learning experience. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We don't take heed as to what our parents did for us, mm-hmm. and how they raised. You don't get no book.
Right.
That tells you how to raise a child, because every person has their own personality. I look at my daughter, she'll look at me, and I had told her the other day, it was so funny. I said, I'm going to give you one opportunity, because she's a mumbler. And I had a sister that was like that. My mother would tell Janet to do something. Janet be mumbling. And, so I said, Shavine, tell me what you be thinking when I tell you so. Boy, she came so raw with it. She came so raw. She came so wrong with it, but it's interesting because kids are different, and you have to open up a relationship with them so that they can be honest with you. I don't want her going to the street and nobody tell her something opposite of what, you know what I'm saying? I want to teach her. I want her to be comfortable enough with me to tell me everything, because I'm the only one, like me and her father told her, we the only one ain't finna lie to you. We ain't got no reason to. Everybody else can trick you, or you can fall for their okie doke or whatever you want to, but we ain't got no reason to lie. So I want to make sure that she's comfortable. I don't care raunchy or not. I want to know the real you. I don't want no facades, you know. And so that's important. Love one another, and offer help. Because I too, you know, I spoke with a therapist when, you know, going through it. I told my therapist what I did. She said, you know what, G? I said, I don't know why I did it. Why I cut my hair after 23 years. My hair was down to my butt. And that was my way. She said that I felt that was the only thing that I could control. And so she said, I chose to do something to myself. Like she said, the way she gave it to me was like, some people smoke dope.
Right.
Some people use alcohol. Some people eat. I chose to get rid of something that meant something to me. Because I lost something that meant something to me. So she helped me put that together. And it's good. Like you said, it's so important. And I had another guest on, you can go back to the other podcast on YouTube under JAS Enterprises, from the project to the Penthouse, and go on the YouTubes and Brenda McGowan, she talked about how childhood trauma affects adults. That was such a good session. You know, because it teaches you how what we've learned translates into our adulthood. So, yeah, she's going to be on again, too. So thank you so much, Dr. Young. I know it's time to get off, because whoever wants you, they want you, and they want you now. Come on, mama. You know, so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. You guys, until next week, please share this gun violence and grief in the streets, y'all, because we have to do something about it. And the end result is we have to love on one another in order to be able to alleviate this issue that we're having in our streets today. So God bless you guys. May He keep you. May the sun shine on you. I say, do not leave this particular podcast until y'all hear me again with the King of Love. King of Love, we moving on up. I have a message from the King of Love, lessons, degrees, melodies sent from above. The King of Love is sent to teach. Words of wisdom are within your reach. Knowledge is a deep understanding of the wisdom of self without being demanding. The words he speaks, the melody he sings, let you know in the door he is truly a king. Disregard the appearance, seek to reach within, and embrace the King of Love without fear of sin. His life is dramatic, his path full of gold. The King of Love will never grow old. The words make you smile, the touch makes you blush. The seriousness of it all sends your mind in a rush. Sisters, brothers, all families, you don't hear him calling? You must be deaf, because we seem to be falling from the highest heights where we were meant to be. His music soothes and his words relieves. Listen close, pay attention. Let him take you to another dimension. When you feel the touch, please don't rush. Relax, open your mind and learn to trust. Look within to see who you truly are, and let the King of Love be your guiding star. Slow it down, pause to think. All the lies you've been told will only make you sink. Learn to ask, what's the reason? Behind the mask, there's always a season. To tell the truth, the King of Love has a mystical tool. He'll wrap up your mind and take you to school. Try to focus on your task at hand, and then you will overstand. Hate, greed, lust are only a few of your enemies at hand. Learn to identify the enemy, then learn about the King of Love. You'll then realize he was sent from above. The King of Love is a trusted friend. He will show you how to reach within. Once you look in and see the ugly heads, don't be afraid to confront a rise from the dead. Change is growth, and it is needed. To follow the path of the King of Love, the words must be heeded. Listen to the melody of your soul's delights. Don't allow inner turmoil to win your fight. Follow the flow as the change takes place. There's room for all in the King of Love space. Peace and blessings from the University of Love, and most high praises to the one who is above. He sits high and he looks low, and definitely he wants you to grow. This is why the King of Love is just a sign that the most high dwelling is in your mind. So we moving on up. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. Please share.